What is up, YouTube? All right, so we're back from a deload. Chrissy wanted me to get some time off before the program took off. So we've only got, now that I have started with Chris, we've only got, depending on body composition, about 12 to 14 weeks for this growth block before we start everything getting ready for prep next year. So given we're already deep into May now, coming to the end of May, heading into June, take out America, which will be 2 weeks. We've really got, like I said, 12 weeks left to really start growing and put on the necessary size. So every session counts, every week counts. So Chrissy gave me a deload early in the block last week, try to give the body a chance to alleviate some fatigue, get rid of some of the diet pressure. We'll be running this same block now for as long as we can, coming into probably leading up to America. So we'll get more into America as it gets closer, but that's the goal. So we've got day 3 push this week in the block. So we've got single arm pull downs, bent over rows, single arm cable rows, Kelso shrugs, single arm rear delt cable fly, incline curl, machine curl, and some leg raises. So Chrissy's really trying to focus on shoulders and arms in this coming block, and obviously back here as well in the pull session. So we've got plenty of back work, plenty of shoulder work across the week, and some additional arm work across the week as well. So a very well-rounded program that we've been kind of lacking for a little bit. And yeah, we'll get into that. And then coming up in the next few weeks, we've got Pete on stage next Sunday. So by the time this one gets out, we'll probably either have Pete coming up or Pete have just finished, and we'll do a wrap-up then as well for that one. So yeah, let's go. All right, so because we come back from a deload, I'm only matching really the numbers with about 1 or 2 RER that I did the week prior to taking time off. I was only 2 weeks into the block, so while the numbers still feel kind of good, Chris is really big on big picture and wants me to look more at long-term fatigue. So because we've only got 12, 14 weeks on this block before we go into the pre-prep strategy, we've got to make sure that we're maximizing every week of training we can, so we don't really have time for a massive deload. So we've got it out of the way early. So now we'll come back this week. We've matched numbers here. That's feeling pretty good. And that'll give us a chance then to prolong the training block without any interruptions, hopefully. Touch wood, which will get as much growth out of this block as possible. So, like I said, plenty of back, plenty of shoulders, plenty of arms. Might stop in the string bean. Overrated. Worst fitness advice in the industry. Probably one of the worst things that gets tossed around the industry is the misapplication of health at every size, and it's interchangeable with happiness at every size. They are very distinct differences, and I think it gets thrown around the industry way too much. The interpretation is usually that you should be happy at the size you're at and that's it, not want to change. And health can be at any size when we can see pretty clearly in a lot of the evidence that that's just not to be the case. That's not to attack anyone for being of any size, but when we push around this notion that health is at every size, doesn't mean you can't improve health at every size, that is the goal, but the implication that having a larger body mass index or having a larger overall mass, especially proportionally in body fat, doesn't have implications on a plethora of diseases or health implications, metabolic disorders and problems. The idea that that's healthy at any size, and that's up or down. So whether you're overweight or underweight, yes, that weight is relative to anyone, obviously, but there is definitely a window of which health is better. And we can see that you can just see it. I don't even need to go into specifics of people, but you absolutely get into a population sample size. You walk through a shopping center, you can walk through a major shopping district, and you can see. So I think it's poor advice, bordering on intellectually dishonest to say it, but also to be scared to say it because of moral implications. And I'm not trying to add any morality to the topic, it's just simply true. So that's probably some of my worst advice that I hear in the industry. How do you handle fatigue in programming? Nice little rant chance. I am so tired of seeing 18 to 20-year-olds that weigh under $1 in pounds talk about how to mitigate and manage their fatigue and stress when it comes to training load. They've only got to program 2 working sets and they don't have to go anywhere near failure, and compound movements are unnecessary. There's even movements now of people trying to push flies as the only necessary movement or exercise selection for the development of the chest. I've seen people attack things like the bench press being redundant in any form. Well, not so much redundant, but the fly is a superior movement. And we're getting so caught up in the weeds, and so caught up in the nuances. The real question to me starts to become, do people even like training anymore? Do people even like going to the gym? We're trying to find every easy way out, when the reality is, as the famous SEAL quote or special operator quote should be, is the only easy day was yesterday. It should get harder. It should get better. To a degree, you should get better at the movements, but you should be progressing your training and getting harder and adding greater degrees of difficulty over time. Yes, in consideration of your fatigue. However, the idea that every single 20-year-old that I've somehow seen on Instagram is approaching their fatigue capacity and need to prioritize very specific exercise selection, and they honestly look like they've been in the gym for a week, is just getting repetitive. And we're just seeing a generation of kids come through that are more concerned with the technical application or the textbook application, but they're actually not applying the actual knowledge. They've read the textbook, I shouldn't even say application. They're getting caught up in the textbook, trying to generalize it to life and think that's replicable in the gym. Anyone that's been around any sort of data knows that the more internally controlled a study is, references, research, the less application it has to general life. So getting caught up in, I did 2 sets, now I've got to move on from my exercise, when you barely train to proximity of failure as it is, you barely have training intensity, you barely have training volume, you're not making progress, but you're worried about the fatigue on your muscle that you've not even built yet. You're 20 years old, your testosterone is never going to be naturally higher. Eat, sleep, train effectively to be fine. So we're getting caught up in moot points because you've seen someone else on TikTok circle jerk about it. 2 weeks or 3? Your most controversial opinion as a coach. Most of the people that are talking about being evidence-based don't understand evidence and research enough to claim to be evidence-based. There are the appeal to authority and the logical fallacies that evidence-based communities throw around, pretending that research is above criticism or can't be critiqued or can't be nuanced or broken down. People are reading abstracts and applying it as gospel instead of failing to look at the significance of the findings and the populations that it's actually studied in, and then trying to pretend that that research applies to every single case study, every single client, and that every client needs to be doing X volume markers, or, and I know a lot of it's just rage bait, which is the most frustrating part. We're turning to a point now where coaching on Instagram is how much rage can I generate to try and elicit a response and get engagement and get clients. But you're misrepresenting data, misunderstanding the information. There's a misapplication of the data and applying it to the wrong people. So for me, most of the evidence-based community doesn't understand evidence enough to be the evidence-based community. There are outliers to that, obviously. There are a lot of people who do understand it, but the average 20-year-old who claims to be an evidence-based trainer worrying about nuanced angle positioning of the lat to maximize the lower versus upper lat attachment when they look like they've been training for 2 weeks is just laughable at best. Overrated, underrated. Planet Fitness style gyms. They're kind of accurately rated in my opinion. They're overrated for being a gym because they do like pizza Fridays and shit. But underrated in that there's a lot of them, they're cheap, you can get into them and they have access. So the critiques of them are very valid and fair. You can barely train hard, don't grunt, don't cuss. The lug alarm goes off, so basically don't try too hard, which pretty much sums up Planet Fitness. But they're in every stone's corner of America that you can basically find one. So, I mean, I guess they're accurately rated. All right, so because this is my third pull exercise, I'm only going to be doing one feeder set. Usually I'll encourage solid warm up to get started in your session. First exercise, second exercise, you might do a couple builder sets to get into the working set. By the time I get to this movement now, the muscle is primed, the blood is flowing, the body's moving. One feeder set to get to my actual working set is more than sufficient. The body's already doing what it needs to do. Get the contraction, feel the contraction, and then move up to your working set and get into it. What do most people get wrong about recovery? Again, we introduced the fatigue conversation. Yes, with good programming, and programming, control, and structure, your recovery should be in a good position. But again, like a lot of stuff in this industry, when it comes to recovery, people get focused on the highest parts of the tree first instead of picking the lowest hanging fruits. What are the biggest things going to return the biggest bang for your buck that can maximize recovery, that are going to be free, cost effective, time efficient, and align with the life you're already living? If I have some 4-hour recovery protocol first thing in the morning to start my day or to finish off my night, and I run a 12-hour shift and I've got kids or I've got a business, the likelihood of getting that done is next to zero. So the biggest mistake I find we make in recovery is trying to overcomplicate it for what it is and not maximizing what it can be. So, sleep, output management. So, you don't have to do 20,000 steps a day. You don't have to do 4 hours of cardio a day. You don't have to do all these extra extremes when you can be, maximizing 4 to 5 sessions of training, hitting a step target, getting to bed on time, sufficient protein intake, sufficient sleep, sufficient calorie intake, and then supplementation around that if need be. You focus on that almost like a pyramid. It is a pyramid. You're building the base first of the most simple, high result producing options you can, and then you stack from that if you have time available, financial ability. You're not going to start with the most expensive thing that's going to be the least bang for buck. It's funny how nowadays the average, the 64% under the bell curve, are more concerned with the 1%ers than just being average and doing the average stuff. Yep. All right, so moving into a Kelso shrug. Haven't done one of these for a long time, but nice and big higher. What I find I want to do here is have the chest, though it's supported, hanging a lot more over the support or bench. Now your shoulders to round a little bit more. We're trying to use mid-back, rhomboid, thoracic to retract, but it's not a complete row. All right, again, we're gonna relax the shoulders and round. What is the biggest gap between preps on social media and preps in real life? I could run a 4-hour lecture on this question. Firstly, the age of this accessibility to information and to documentary style videos. The average newbie that is prepping for the first time, second time, early in their career, has access to the daily life of pros who prep, have been training and competing for 20 plus years, who have their life dialed in, who have every factor under control, that are taking ample amounts of drugs, training the house down, have their body figured out, might only need a 12, 15 week prep. And then they're correlating that to what they should be doing and thinking that if a coach is doing longer than 15 weeks, they're trying to take money. We're setting short-term gratification as the priority of a prep career, thinking that the immediate prep is the only goal, and which it should be a focus point. But we're prioritizing that as the only goal, implying that the long term of the client's career isn't also part of the equation, the conversation. And then from that, because it's become so generalized, it's become so accessible to everyone, what happens when you increase population sizes, you increase sample sizes, you start to increase the risk factors that come along with that, the personality tropes that come with that don't necessarily align with the sport, but because it's now looked at as this general thing that everyone gets to do and this experience that everyone should be able to do, it creates a lot of risk factors or exacerbation of risk factors, and then becomes the blame for that exacerbation. It's one of the most frustrating inverse relationships that I've ever seen. So we're lowering the barrier of entry, allowing everyone to do it, but then because of the type of person who is drawn to something like this, there is a lot of emotional insecurity, body image issues, self-worth issues that are thought to be found on a stage. If you don't find it in yourself, you are not going to find it in a bodybuilding career. So that is probably one of the biggest issues that I find in the gaps between preps on social media, preps in real life. So a lot of people aren't doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it for what they think the prep will give them in the end, not what the prep gives them across their life and their career, and something to work towards over a long period of time. I didn't get pro my first year, therefore, it sucks, the sport's bad. I've got now a negative relationship with food. I didn't develop my life properly to get on stage. Likelihood is you probably shouldn't have competed in the first place. So I know a lot of people don't want to say that, and it should be open to everyone, and it's gatekeeping bodybuilding. You know what? Extreme things should have a kind of degree of gatekeeping. I can't just go drive Formula One because I feel like I could have a car license. So that's, the difference. Why is staying healthy so difficult? Oh God, another lecture I could write. Staying healthy is difficult for the most part because people forego it and then have to try and claim it back. Maintenance is always easier than reacquisition. It's always going to be the case. It is easier to sustain health than it is to generate it or build it or get it back. It is always easier to sustain clients and retain clients than it is to find new ones. It's always easier to retain a high quality product than it is to build a whole new product from scratch if you stop taking care of the old one. The rule just applies over and over again. So once you look at that, it's hard to get healthy because we stopped doing the things that made us healthy when we were younger. I see so many people get to like 20, 25, consume more food, more alcohol, and more processed or fast food takeaway options, high calories, high macronutrient profile, low nutrient quality, low volume of food, and then move far less than they did when they were in things like high school, playing multiple sports a week, playing sport across their lifespan, or the adolescent lifespan. There's a few things like injuries and stuff get in the way, but for the most part, it's hard to claim back what you lost. And then because of that, people struggle to stay committed. They can't consistently apply action and effort towards the thing that doesn't produce results instantly. We've streamlined demand and expectation to be so quick that if you aren't getting an immediate result within seconds, within weeks, within a month, that the process is considered either valuable, it doesn't work, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, and therefore people just give up and throw in the towel. So the premise of health is very easy. It's a simple concept. The application of achieving health or reaching health is a different conversation. And that's where I think the nuance is where people get lost, or where health is lost in most people.
Hey, big boy. Hey, big boy.
All right, Matter is turning 5. What is one of the biggest lessons you've learned in 5 years? One of of the biggest lessons that I've learned in 5 years is that it pays to go all in. Too many people like to leave one foot out the door and one foot in, so that if it works either way, they can justify or validate inaction and rationalize half-assed efforts. If it fails, oh, I never really tried that hard anyway. I never really did anything, it wasn't really my focus. If it's successful, oh, imagine what I could have done if I tried. Well, I'd rather not imagine, I'd rather not know, I'd rather see what happens when I do absolutely all that I can to make something happen. And what I tend to find is, what I have coined the time collapse effect, is the more focused you are on a single or minimal topics, the more narrowed your field of vision, the more time, energy, and effort you can give to something, the faster that thing progresses in what seems like a shorter time span. So what is perceived as a 5-year goal, e.g., we were going to be on stage speaking within, I think, 5 years we'd put as the final goal, where I wanted to talk internationally and share what we knew. We did that in the first 18 months. I've now done that 3 times since. So when you focus and go all in on something, you take that risk. Yeah, I tell you what, it's hard. It is exhausting, it's tiring, it's worrying, it's stressful, but it's also rewarding, fulfilling. It's confirmational. When you do it out of a sense of fulfillment and pride in what you're trying to achieve in a mission bigger than yourself, it is validating and it's fulfilling in the life that you're trying to build. Right now, for me, it's not what it gives us in the short term, which is still great. It's allowed us to travel the world, travel Australia, work with some of the best clients in the country. It's what it's doing over time as we get to see it progress and see it change, see it develop and evolve. That's the rewarding part. The work becomes the reward in and of itself, so it self-perpetuates the desire for me to keep working. So just by starting off with the idea of going all in and taking the risk, I think that's probably the best thing that we've ever done. The biggest lesson we've learned in that 5 years is it pays to just go all in and take the risk. You're gonna suffer a life you don't like either way. Whether it fails, whether it succeeds, whether you're stuck doing something you hate, if it's gonna be hard, it may as well be hard doing something that you love doing. Philosophizer. What's the difference between someone fitting fitness in and living the lifestyle? And this can be applied to preps so much easier as well. I think people are trying to fit it in. A lot of the time they think they can have their cake and eat it too, which is like a literal sense, I guess, as well in this nuanced conversation context. But a lot of the time we see people try to fit fitness in around their life and then wonder why they don't get results. They still want to be able to go out and drink all the time, not have to give up foods. They still want to be able to socialize with friends all the time. They put these barriers and frictions in between where they are and where they want to be, and then wonder why things don't get moving or take off or they don't build consistency. The reality is they should be building it into their life, making their lifestyle about the project, which is themselves. Physical development is really just a physical manifestation of self-development. I rarely see someone who's working on themselves properly that isn't working on themselves physically. So when you're trying to make it a part of your life, I'm still gonna get my exercise in, I'm still gonna eat healthy, but I might go out for a drink with the girls, or I might go out for a dinner, but I'm gonna get straight back to my diet, I'm gonna get straight back to my normal eating, structure my nutrition, sleeping on time, hydrating properly, getting my steps in, going for a walk, but I'm still gonna go out and enjoy life a little bit. I'm gonna see my friends. The majority of your life is a health-oriented lifestyle with those nuanced enjoyments. The general person tends to do it in reverse. They'll train once on a Friday night for a party pump and then spend all weekend binge drinking, binge eating, taking party drugs, not sleeping, then wonder why they wake up Monday like shit, don't want to start the week on top and get any training or exercise in. and it just snowballs in a negative way from there. So living the lifestyle, it is a part of who you are and what you do, where you try to fit it in, you try to stay the same, and then add a little sprinkle on top and then wonder why it doesn't get anywhere. And then lo and behold, you lose motivation because nothing's working because you've tried everything. The reality is you just haven't given up being, well, quote unquote shit. And you're stuck doing the same stuff over and over again and wonder why you're not getting anywhere. Gay porn. All right, one final question. Who do we have on stage next, and how is Tom going in his reverse? So we have Pete coming up to his first show of the season. By the time this comes out, he's on June 8th out at Ipswich for OCB. This will be our first show of his 3-show season coming up. Then we've got a 5-week gap between that and his next shows, which then runs into the NBA season for the middle of the year. So really excited for this one. Pete's final season ever as a competitor. You know, obviously very fucking honored to be the guy that he's chosen, the system he's chosen to take him through that. Tom has balanced out quite well. Got his appetite a little bit more under control. Calories are getting quite high now. We're closer to 3,800, 4,000. Dude's looking very good. Running some highs and lows during the week just because he wants to enjoy food with his partner and life on the weekends. So higher calories on the weekends for him, a bit more control during the week with work-life structure is easier. But yeah, blood's come back, they're pretty decent. A few markers to get back under control, but they're really just in line with the cost of doing business in our industry and what we choose to do. Nothing was outlined to me that was extreme or worrying, so everything was quite good there. Get him healthy, get him back into position, and then yeah, really start just growing for whatever he decides to do next. So overall, he's got a big goal of wanting to be 120 kilos lean. I mean, he's sitting at 100 kilos now, looking very, very good. So solid position here to springboard from and decide what we want to do next. So yeah, everything's going well so far. I've got food under control again, got eating structure a bit more under control. Health markers are good. And then we just start planning for what the off season looks like. All right, guys, that is it for day 3 pool session. As you know, prep books are open now for 2026, 2027. This is the time where you start to make real progress. The clients that spend the most time with us before we get on stage and before we get into prep tend to do the best and get the best results. So make sure you're looking at that and considering that when you're trying to plan out your seasons, what you want to do. Let's start now and get prepared for the best possible position and showing. Coaching books are open, lifestyle books are open, everything is ready to go. If you're keen, ready to get to work, book in your free consult, find all of our free stuff, learn about what we do and how we do it. It's all there for you to watch, read, download, and take in. Yeah, there's a lot there that we give you to make sure that you're prepared when you start with us and get going. So spots are open, let's do it.